Okay, now to start this up. There it goes. And to continue where I left off in this same chapter about omnipotence of the book called The Universal One. To primitive man, modern man owes his concepts of a cruel God, of a supernatural power. These wrong concepts have become traditions of man's mind and habits of his thinking. Modern man inherits the habits of the unbalanced thinking of primitive man. Orderly thinking is perfect equilibrium. Against perfect equilibrium, nothing imperfect can prevail. Variation of the nature of true thinking would throw the rhythm of orderly thinking out of tune, and the universe could not be. To think in light is to think only perfection, for perfection is all that is written there. Mind is perfect. There is no evil. Imperfection or evil is non-existent. Man's concept of evil is a wrong concept. Evil is as impossible as unequilibrium is impossible. The reader will remember that all thinking is an oscillation between two equal and opposite actions and reactions. He will remember that the union of any two exactly equal and opposite actions and reactions make one. Man has control over his actions, but he has no control over the reactions to those actions. The appearance of evil is merely potential out of place and suspended there for the time. Like the apple on the tree, gravitation will eventually restore it to its proper place in equalized potential. From this inevitable return to the stability of the conquering truth, there is no escape. The apple, as accumulated potential, suspended out of place, will seek its own potential by falling toward higher pressures when the stem weakens by disintegration. Again, the decaying apple, disintegrating into gases of lower potential, will seek the place of lower potential by rising into lower pressures. Just so with evil. It is but an action which must eventually meet its reaction. That action which man calls wrong thinking is simultaneously written on the soul as positive charge and is balanced by its opposite and equal negative reaction. Thus the equilibrium of the universe remains constant, and man has recorded his own thinking, which he may correct at will, on his soul, but correct it he must. Concerning the soul, man is ever concerned regarding his soul and its habitation after death. Man need have no concern. Man's soul is but the memory of the evolving ideal of man. Out of the soul the body is again born. The soul is but the record of man's thinking. The evolving idea of man cannot forever be held in suspense in inertia. The soul of a dead man is but the record of a man asleep for a while, awaiting the renewal of his body. The first part of sleep is but a centrifugal, decentrative reaction to a centrifugal, wait a minute, let me start that over again. The first part of sleep is but a centrifugal, decentrative reaction to a centripetal, concentrated period of action. It is the expanding, dissipative, non-creative impulse of thinking, just as wakefulness is the contracting, generative, creative impulse. It is the period of preponderantly exothermal electronegative discharge, when the body degenerates in preponderance to its generation. Later, during sleep, the centripetal concentrative action begins to accumulate until it becomes sufficiently preponderant to cause the state of what is known as wakefulness. In the same way, during the first part of the day, the contracting generative impulse is in preponderance, but later fatigue shows that the expanding non-creative impulse of thinking is increasing until it in turn becomes preponderant and causes another period of sleep. And so the pendulum swings. As in all other phenomena of motion, sleep and wakefulness are simultaneous in the expression of their opposition, but preponderantly one or the other in sequence. Just so with life and death. From the moment of birth we begin to die. Generation of that which man knows as life merely predominates until that which he knows as death takes its turn in orderly sequence. Death is just a longer sleep than the daily sleep. The difference is in the duration of the sleep. Concerning reincarnation. Death is a life period of sleep for total bodily regeneration, just as the daily sleep is for partial body regeneration. Regeneration of the soul is reincarnation of the body. The chemistry of the soul of all ideal is registered in the master tones, known as the inert gases. The soul is the matrix of the body, just as the master tones are the matrices of the elements. The inert master tones of an octave of the elements contains a complete and exact record of every effective motion within its octave. The soul of man contains a complete and exact record of every action and reaction of thinking man. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. Creation is just a swing of the cosmic pendulum between sleep and sleep, between awakening and awakening, and one follows the other as the night follows the day, and the day again follows the night. While sleeping for a night, man does not cease to be, nor does he fear to sleep, for he knows that sleep is beautiful, and he will awaken at the dawn of a new day. Man fears to die, for he knows not what the dark sleep of death will bring. He knows not that death is but a longer and more beautiful sleep from which he will awaken with a newly regenerated body, to begin once more his periodicity of growth at the dawn of another new day of life. Man fears the hobgoblins of primitive man's concept of punishment of the soul for the sins of the body. He fears the dark sleep of death with its terror as much as a child which has been frightened by ghost stories fears the dark with its same imaginary terrors. With new comprehension, man can eliminate the imaginary hobgoblins and fears from his declining years and go to the sleep of his disappearance as form in peace. In disappearance, man does not cease to be. In his disappearing, the ideal of man does not discontinue. As the day disappears only to reappear in its proper periodic interval, so must man reappear. All appearances and disappearances are periodic. Also are all reappearances periodic. Appearances and disappearances are but moving points in the cycle of mind. In this universe of motion, creating things do not pause at any point. There are no created things. There are but creating things, ever integrating, ever moving, ever evolving in the integration and the assembling of the ideal of themselves. No form of life has been created. It is creating. Nothing has been. All things are being. Evolving ideal into form is a positive action requiring the creative intelligence of imagination. A man who only has great knowledge has a negative possession. Poor he is indeed. A man who has great imagination has a positive, dynamic possession. Rich he is, for knowledge is within him, and of a certainty he shall find it. Knowledge of existence is not acquired from without. It is recollected from within. When man learns new things, he is but recollecting old experiences of his thinking, thought by him before in higher octaves. Man is not deceived about the elusive, non-permanent quality of the evolving ideas of his own thinking. He knows that they will soon pass and that he cannot hold their evolving forms in suspension, unchanging for one instant. The relative scale of man's objective universe deceives him as to the illusion of his evolving ideal. The universal mind thinks ideal into form exactly as man thinks ideal into form. The universal one cannot hold the evolving form of divine ideal in suspension any more than man can. There is but one process of thinking, for there is but one mind. There are not two minds, nor two methods of thinking, nor are there two sets of laws governing thinking, nor are there two separate substances, nor two separate things, nor two separate beings in the universe. All thinking is universal thinking. All thinking things are thinking in unison. All are creating that which they are thinking. All thinking things are self-creating. All thinking things are creating all things. Man is his own creator. Man is the creator of all that is. This shall man know when he shall think within in the higher octaves of light of his inner mind. When man shall know the language of the universal one, of whom he is a part, then shall he know the voice of the universal one. The still, small voice within universal man speaks to him in the language of light, in words of tones, in the speed of light. Within the heart of thinking man, the silent voice has forever asked, "Who am I?" Since the beginning, man cried aloud, "Who am I?" And the voice answered, "Thou art I, the universal one, am thou whom thou art, creating in my image." The voice within man insatiably asks forever, "Who am I?" And the still small voice answers, "I am I. I am I whom I am creating. I am the universal I. I am all that is and thee. I am he that is one with me. I am the empire of I that I am." Since the beginning, the voice within man asks, "Whence came I?" And the voice forever answers, "I am of the universal passion of creation. I came from God. I am of God. I am sole record of ideal. Where God is, I am. Where I am, there God is." Within man, the voice of long ages demands, "What am I?" And the familiar voice answers, "I am of the body of God, born of his substance. God is mind, I am mind. God is truth, I am truth. God is love, I am love. God is life, I am life. God is light, I am light. God is power, I am power. What God is, I am. What he commands, I command. My purpose is his purpose. God lives in me. My inheritance is from God and is of God. He gives all to me. He withholds nothing. The divinity of me is thine and mine. It is that which is recorded within the soul of me. It is the Holy Spirit within the sanctuary of me. I am an ideal of thine. The body of me is the ideal of the soul of me. It is mine and thine. I am the master sculptor. My body is the plastic clay. My soul is the mother mold of my body, the matrix for my regeneration. I am what I am. I shall be what I desire to be. What I am, I have desired to be. I am the sum of my own desire. I am thou, creator of myself. Thou art I, creator of all. I am thou, creator of all, for thou hast made it known in my heart that I am not of myself alone. I am thou, and thou art I. I am of the farthermost star and of the blade of grass in my dooryard. I am of my brother and of the mountain. The ecstasy of my thinking varies the spectra of 10 times 10 billion stars and illumines the ether of endless space. Thy thinking has created all that is. My thinking is thy thinking. My thinking has created all that is. I am ecstatic man. I am man, self-creating. I am God, creator of man. I am father of myself. I am son of the living God. The ends of space are mine. I shall know no limitations that are not thy limitations. Within man, the still small voice asks from the beginning and ceaselessly, why am I? And the voice answers, I am an expression of the universal passion of creation. God created me that I should fulfill his purpose. God gave me desire to create and the power of creation. God dwells within me. I shall not deny the power within me, which is God within me. I shall not close the ears of my soul to the whispering of my soul, which makes me dwell on the mountaintop in ecstasy of inner thinking. The universal desire is the expression of ideal through the rhythms of thinking in accord with the law, in endless sequence throughout endless space. Within man, the ever-questioning universal voice beseeches, whither am I bound? And the voice answers, God was my beginning, is my substance, and shall be my end. From the one I came, to the one I return. I but tarry by the way to do the will of the one. I am universal man, the image of my Creator. Ecstasy and exultation attend me, for I know that all that is within me. My dwelling place is in the high heavens and on the mountaintop, above the waters and the earth. I range the high heavens in ecstasy. My feet are wings. The ends of space are mine. I sing praises unto all the universe by the way. The host of heaven rejoice with me by the way. I have denied my unity, my universality. I have not known my dwelling place was the earth. I walk the earth heavily in chains. My earth-bound feet dragged heavily before me. I wearied of the long road, my back bent with the ache of its burden. I was lonely and the way dark. I shall not deny my oneness and live in the loneliness of the dark. I shall know my universality, and I shall dwell on the mountaintop in the light of inner thinking. Hope dwells in the light. Despair lurks in the dark. Light and growth are of the light. Death and destruction are of the dark. Memory. The acquisition of new knowledge by man is but the rethinking or recollection of old knowledge. Learning is not acquisition. It is recognition of a truth through the act of recollecting. Recollection is the act of transforming the potential energy of an ideal stored in memory, in inertia, into the kinetic energy of active mind, which is the state of concentrative thinking. Recollection is a dynamic, concentrative action of mind. It is therefore electropositive and belongs to motion in opposition. It is the action of again giving form to the memory of ideal. Recollection differs from creation in this wise. The act of creating ideal into form by concentrative thinking is an initial action. The act of recollection is a regeneration or reproduction of that initial action, the reaction of which has been stored in memory. It is the resurrection of the soul of ideal into the body of it. It is the recreation of ideal into form for its further evolution. Memory is the storehouse of the ideal of mind. Thinking mind taps that storehouse of memory in that activity of mind which man calls by many names, such as memory, instinct, intuition, and imagination. They are all one and the same. Their varying shades of meaning indicate only the differing manner in which old recollections of memory, recorded in millions of years of evolving ideas, manifest themselves. If man could but see that the thinking of all mind is the same, whether it be mind of God or mind of man, or bird or beaver or oak or rose, he would have a truer concept of the universe. If he could see that there is but one mind, and that mind is thinking in the expression of but one ideal, Then he would begin to comprehend the divine conception. If he could but see that the one ideal is the whole, creating, evolving universe, the one great illusion of divine mind, as a passing fancy is an illusion of man's mind, he would be getting closer to the fundamental truth. Then if he could but see that the illusion of the one ideal is but illusion in form, the substance of which is mind, he would not then look to illusions as dependable realities, and to the one reality as an undependable illusion. If he could go further in his comprehension and realize that God and man and the oak and the atom are just one, and that all these are thinking out the divine ideal, then would he be close to the door of the Holy of Holies. Perhaps it might assist thinking man toward the attainment of this concept by comparing the thinking human brain as an appearance to the thinking mind of the universe as an appearance. To man, the appearance of the universe is that of countless objects at limited distances, one from the other. He regards himself as one of those objects, an individual, alone, independent, free of any bindings, free to think and act and do as he desires. His very breathing he regards as his own breathing, and his actions are, to his thinking, his alone. Let us look within the thinking brain, and in doing so imagine one thinking individual, male unit upon one planet, of one atom of the brain, seeing his universe as man sees his. The appearance of the universe to this unit would be exactly the same to him as is man's universe to man. The objects within his vision would be separated by relative distance. Vast spaces would intervene between him and the vast suns of his starry heavens. Their luminosity would to him be relatively the same, for the positive nucleus of every system is a light-giving sun. And also would their relative motion be the same, for 1,000,000,000,000 revolutions per second of a light unit would be just as relatively slow to him as a day is to man. Periodicity of evolution is as relative as the appearance it records. Is it not then just as reasonable for this diminutive thinking unit of man to think himself one in a vast universe as for man to do so? Would it not be just as difficult for him to realize that he is just one apparent unit of the whole as it is for man to do so? And as it is with this diminutive unit of his universe within man's brain, so it is with man in his objective universe. One is thinking man's thinking, functioning in the evolution of the idea of the man, and he cannot do otherwise if he will. The other is thinking the universal ideal, functioning in the evolution of the divine conception, and he cannot do otherwise if he will. Even in-breathing and out-breathing of either is the in-breathing and out-breathing of the living universal one. Every thought and every action are in accord with the universal pulsations of action and reaction of the process of thinking, and they cannot be otherwise. How many minutes am I at? 23. Instinct. Next part is about instinct. Consider the manifestation known as instinct. The beaver builds his dam, a marvelous feat of engineering. Was he taught to do it? Would he not do it just the same and just as perfectly if his parents and all associates were killed and he matured alone? How does he do it? Instinct, one answers. The bee builds his marvelous cells, the spider his web. The barn swallow builds in barns, and the chimney swallow in chimneys. The robin flies south and north according to the season. Instinct makes them do it. They cannot do otherwise, says science. Just so, they cannot do otherwise. Nor can any of us, or any creating thing, do otherwise than that which it thinks and has thought for countless periods of reappearance. These acts are all acts of thinking mind, recollecting dynamically the idea of its evolution, which has been recorded as memory, in motion, in inertia, during ages of building beaver dams, the honeycombs, spider webs, and during ages of migration and nest building and other characteristics of the evolving manifestation of the divine concept as a whole. Imagination. Consider that manifestation of recollection known as imagination. The quality of imagination varies in accordance with the ability to recollect memory recorded in the soul and with the ability to think in light. To think in light is to think in higher octaves of the inner subjective mind. To think in light is to disassociate the outer objective mind from the inner, to bolt it out as though that octave of integration had not yet been. The outer mind is concerned primarily with continuance of the body as an appearance of existence, and it is not at all concerned or interested in much of anything else. The outer mind of man or of the lion, the dog or the elephant is absolutely the same. Man differs from the animal only in his ability to think in higher octaves and bring back to his outer mind recollection, the perception of existence stored in motion in inertia, in the memory of his universality. The perception of all knowledge suspended within motion and inertia inspires within man that which he thinks is new knowledge, and as he adds it to his thinking, he again writes it upon his soul. Man does not realize that what he considers new idea brought into the appearance of existence is but old idea stored within him, projected upon the outer plane of his thinking. Inspiration. When man gives to other men the inspiration which has come to him, he is a divine messenger of the living God, delivering to man his revelation from the Holy of Holies. The genius, the superthinker, with imagination, who brings beauty to the world, is inspired man, thinking in light. The greater the imagination, the greater the perception of the reality of universal existence, hence the greater the intelligence. The lesser the imagination, the greater the reality of the appearance of existence. The greater the imagination, the nearer to oneness and the further from the animal. The inspired genius of great imagination has great intelligence. He is able to use his knowledge creatively. Those things which he desires to know, he may know. The humble poet, inspired by knowledge conveyed to him by contemplation of the orbs of night, may give to man a message of truth which will outlive long generations of the learned, whose disproved facts have died in the proving. The prophets were super-thinking men of great genius. The prophets had knowledge of the cause of things and could foretell their effects. Comprehension of the